This next part is AI rendering right inside of Revit. And this takes our 3D model that we create ourselves and then does enhanced rendering, adding of features to it based on artificial intelligence. And it's quite remarkable. So let's go ahead and just take a look at some of the imagery here. He makes a three-dimensional cool model inside of Revit, and he installs the Evolve Lab plugin, by going to the site and following the processes of it. And he's getting just a trial order of it. I don't encourage you to do this now. I think you'd rather want to save this until you had something substantive that you wanted to kind of experiment with it. But he goes through now and makes some discussions about setting up his model so that he's ready to use the plugin. And then he goes to, let me just kind of fast forward here. He opens that plugin. It has creativity strength and style strength, and can create atmospheric conditions for the model as it renders it. And let's see if we get to a position here where he's actually rendering a model. He goes through a bit of a discussion. But here is then the kind of output from that. So now you can see the water's been added, the vegetation looks very real, and even the representation of his original work is now different. And this is all still based on this idea of prompts that he's added. He wants it to have reflections on the glass, white metal panels, the wood, all of those things he put in, and the rendering actually took care of adding those kind of versions of what that would look like. Now, it doesn't exactly fit the model. It's just using the model as a reference visual. So you couldn't actually use it to modify. So you can see here, the model stays somewhat similar, but it's radically different in the way the windows and glass are divided off and things like that. But once again, another place to really stimulate ideas on what your conceptual designs are and how you would move them forward. So here we have another image rendered with some other changing terminology in it, and another whole contextual effect with it. And once again, this is not rendering the whole model. It's only rendering the view that you've created of it. So it's giving you a static rendering in a certain style with characteristics and creativity based on artificial intelligence. And once again, kind of disruptive. We're kind of moving into the machine providing so much of this kind of idea of photorealistic rendering, with adding in the settings and other features even to our own architecture. So he goes through this pretty quickly because he doesn't want to use up all of his credits. And so he was working on an exterior one, but you can also work on the interior spaces. Let's see where we go. So here's that same image. Now you can see how remarkably different the AI has rendered it. And I wanted to go down to here, which is another, for those of you that are more into interior design or what we could do with that. So here we're using a Revit interior, going out, giving it prompts for the way we want the materials and the features to look. And let me once again click forward here until he actually does a rendering. And there we have a rendering, photorealistic rendering with new materials applied and some styling changes in that. And you can notice there's defects in it in the way the glass is tracked across the top, but a remarkable kind of presentation of materiality within that. So this can be used, and once again, that's just a 2D visualization or an image. It's not a modification to the 3D model. And but it could give you an opportunity to go through and work through many variations on your ideas of concepts of interior materials and that. And then this is kind of a far off thing, also startling what's coming out of it, artificial intelligence. He asked to take that visual of the 3D BIM model and then create what would be the start of like construction documents to kind of like explode it out and show what it might look like, as if you were to be beginning to create the idea of construction documents. So I'm sure this is a bit overloading. I wanted to, though, introduce you to it because you'll either make these discoveries on your own or, heaven forbid, you make them later than the opportunity that you thought would be good for you to want to start experimenting with these kind of technologies.